Chapter 802. Xiao Mahai's figure disappeared at the door of the dining room. His back was light and cheerful, and everyone could see that he was happy and satisfied from the bottom of his heart. He had never thought that he needed to be in a high position in his life. It was important to have self-knowledge and self-control. It just so happened that Xiao Mahai had both of these qualities. He was capable, but not at the top. He was ambitious, but not too ambitious. The military rank of Major General and the position of Commander of the Army Group. At that time, Xiao Mahai's biggest wish was nothing more than to go further and become a Lieutenant General, or at most a Lieutenant General with a higher title. When he came to the desert prison, his military rank was promoted by 1 level, and he guarded the yellow sand for thousands of miles. His biggest ambition was nothing more than to leave here and not be looked down upon. That was all. Deputy Secretary General of the Army Headquarters, Chief of the General Staff, Commander of the Navy of Jianghu State, Commander of the Blood Battalion, each of these positions was more prominent than the other. These were all figures standing at the top of the military. Xiao Mahai believed that he was qualified for these positions, but just as he said, he was cautious and conscientious, as if he was walking on thin ice. This was not the feeling he liked. These positions were too heavy, and he felt that they were not suitable for him. He just wanted to leave the desert prison. If he could follow Li Tianlan, that would be the best. Not to mention Li Tianlan's future position, even now, his position was not bad if he followed Li Tianlan. It didn't matter if he was a butler, a servant, or a servant. In more than a year, he didn't feel that Li Tianlan looked down on him. As long as Li Tianlan didn't look down on him, no one dared to look down on him at all. He was the butler of Emperor Dong's palace. He was really competent for this position, and he could do it very happily. This was the best situation. Li Tianlan watched his back disappear, shook his head slightly, glanced at Saint on the screen of the mobile phone, and whispered, "I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that he has no ambition. I don't know what he thinks, but even if he is content with the status quo, his current choice is not a loss." Saint laughed. He had already known everything about Xiao Mahai, and he was also very satisfied with Li Tianlan's arrangement. To expand the territory, he naturally needed ambitious generals, and the most important thing for the people around him was to be content. Xiao Mahai was undoubtedly well behaved. Don't look down on yourself in Emperor Dong's palace. The chief steward of Emperor Dong's palace has a high status now. Can you imagine what the chief steward of Emperor Dong's palace will be like in 10 years? What about 20 years later? At that time, the position of general might not necessarily be enough to exchange for the position of butler, let alone the position of chief butler. Li Tianlan nodded. Now that you mention it, I'm looking forward to it. Saint smiled. His eyes were drifting, and he seemed to be yearning. He had seen a dynasty that truly belonged to a person. Even though he had only seen it in a blue notebook, seeing it was seeing it. He knew very well what the housekeeper of such a dynasty meant to the entire dark world. The only pity was that in the dynasty he saw, the chief butler was not Xiao Mahai. "How are your injuries?" Li Tianlan asked suddenly. Saint did not participate in the fighting and games in the chaos of Eastern Europe, but he was also seriously injured. Not only him, but military counselor, Azura, and general, the 3 super masters of Samsara Palace, were also seriously injured. Saint, military advisor, general, Azura. They were the strongest 4 of the 12 super masters of Samsara Palace. Their injuries all came from the sword of summer solstice when they raided Mount Dibbing. Just 1 sword. Azura and general were out of danger not long ago. Their vital signs gradually stabilized, and they were still in a coma. Although military counselor was still walking in the outside world, he had never fought with anyone since then. He was like an ordinary person, and it was not until recently that he began to slowly recover. After that, Saint chose to recuperate in Lin'an. Finally, he broke through to the invincible realm in Lin'an. But his breakthrough was too intense. Instead of healing, his injuries got worse. Li Tianlan was not sure if he had recovered after more than a year. "It's okay," Saint said thoughtfully, it's not a big problem to fight with others, but it will take some time to recover. Will it delay the progress? Li Tianlan frowned. Saint was 40 years old this year. It was not too early for him to break through to the invincible realm at the age of 39. In a few years, his physical peak would pass. In the case of physical decline, it was extremely difficult to go further. Not everyone could be like Wang Tianzong. The next few years were critical for Saint. If his injuries were not healed, it would be difficult for him to completely stabilize his realm and rush into the peak of the invincible realm. It's not a big problem. Saint said slowly, there is still time, and my injuries are almost healed. At the very least, at this stage, my strength is enough. As for the future, Emperor Dong's palace doesn't care about my strength, but yours. If you are invincible in the world, it doesn't matter if I stop here. Li Tianlan frowned and didn't say much. It seemed that since he entered the desert prison, the expectations of the people around him were too high, so high that even they themselves were a little negative. But such feelings Li Tianlan had no solution at the moment. This was a problem of mentality, which could not be solved in a few words. And for some reason, Li Tianlan always felt that there was some special reason for this kind of negativity. Especially military counselor and Saint. I heard that something happened in Beihai. Saint was silent for a while and asked slowly. This was not a rumor anymore. The general change was around the corner. The president and the prime minister went to the desert prison in person. Wang Xianxia deliberately collided with them. Everyone knew that something would happen in Beihai in the near future, but few people knew what would happen for the time being. Beihai, it's going to be chaotic. Li Tianlan said softly. What about the specifics? Saint was a little curious. The Vatican, East Island, the Jianghu family of South America. Li Tianlan gave a sarcastic smile. It's probably these people. One of the key points should have something to do with Wang Qinglei, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that if these people invade the Wang family of Beihai, it will definitely be a big trouble for Wang Xianxia now. The Vatican, East Island, the Jianghu family of South America. Saint narrowed his eyes. More than one invincible realm expert, so they need me. Li Tianlan said calmly. Saint glanced at him and nodded. I'll go there then. Although his realm was not stable, he could already fight with others. At this time, he naturally could not flinch. No need. Li Tianlan shook his head. You stay in the hospital to take care of the wounded. I don't want the hospital to be attacked a second time. What about Beihai? Saint hesitated for a moment. Leave it to me. Li Tianlan said calmly and looked at his watch. He looked at his watch and said, in a few hours, Wang Xianxia will probably arrive in Yuzhou. Contact military counselor and sort out some information that Wang Xianxia needs and give it to him. Then leave the hospital for a while and go to Beihai. Come back at night. To Beihai? Saint frowned. I'll go. He was a new invincible realm expert in Jianghu state. His every move was watched by everyone. Now he contacted Wang Xianxia with great fanfare and even went to Beihai with him. When the news came out, one could imagine the shock. Yes, to Beihai. Li Tianlan's voice was resolute, and his pupils were extremely hot. Help me bring back coldness of 9 states. He paused and continued, the sooner, the better. I can't wait. Chapter 803. Saint raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Li Tianlan seriously. He nodded slowly and said, I can leave at any time. Since he became the deputy palace lord of Emperor Dong's palace, or even since he knew Li Tianlan, it was the first time he had seen such eagerness and expectation in Li Tianlan. Take back the coldness of the 9 states. The murderous weapon that had been broken by Xinyuan Feng in Eastern Europe. The divine weapon that could control the sword intent of the Chosen One. For the time being, Saint could not imagine how amazing the changes would be after Li Tianlan obtained the coldness of 9 states, but he understood the cause and effect between Xinyuan Feng and the coldness of 9 states. Now it seemed that Li Tianlan had also realized something. Wang Xingxiao is willing to use the coldness of 9 states as a bargaining chip. Saint smiled and didn't know what to say. This seemed to be a huge price to pay. But it wasn't too big. But no matter what, Wang Xingxiao's choice this time was decisive enough, even decisive. The predecessor of coldness of 9 states was the human emperor. The first murderous weapon that had shaken the dark world for hundreds of years. In order to have a divine weapon that could fully unleash his sword intent, Wang Tianzong decisively cast the human emperor into the coldness of the 9 states. There was actually no difference. After all, the material was the same. The only thing that changed was the shape. The energy requirements of the coldness of the 9 states would not change. In this state, the coldness of the 9 states could bear Wang Tianzong's sword energy and could also be used as a murderous weapon. There might be some trade-offs, but this was obviously not something that Saint could know. Therefore, when the human emperor became the coldness of the 9 states, it might be slightly different from the human emperor, but in essence, it was still a murderous weapon and something that Xianyuan Feng needed. For the Wang family of Beihai, the role of the human emperor was not significant in the following period. During the final battle of Heaven Capital, human emperor had already opened fire on the border of Zhongzhou state. The transformation from Renhuang to coldness of 9 states had exhausted the energy accumulated over the past 3 years. Moreover, after coldness of 9 states was cut off by Xianyuan Feng, it was not easy to repair it. If he kept coldness of 9 states, it could be expected that within 10 years, this divine weapon would not be of much use. Now the Wang family of Beihai was betting on the next few years. They wanted to get through this crisis. When Wang Tianzong recovered from his injury, it would be a new world. Therefore, Wang Xingxiao handed over the coldness of 9 states, which was temporarily useless to North Sea, without any hesitation. Li Tianlan replied with a and did not express any opinion. He just subconsciously adjusted his sitting posture. His heart was obviously not calm, which was an extremely rare emotion for him. He had the kind of anticipation and restlessness that didn't want to wait for even a second longer. When he was a child, he stood in the camp of the Li family and looked up at the star flag and thought about the future of the Li family. Soon after he came to Huading at the beginning of the year, he came out of the Sky Academy and was pushed onto the sofa by Qin Weibai in that villa. Then, it was now. Coldness of the 9 states. Human emperor. It belonged to the Wang family of Beihai. But Xianyuan Feng was his. He had enough power to decide Xianyuan Feng's direction. Li Tianlan subconsciously raised his hand and clenched it. The saints were slightly stunned when they saw this posture. This posture didn't seem like he was holding a sword. In a trance, it felt like he was holding the entire world in his hands. Li Tianlan looked at Saint calmly and said, "Don't let anything happen." Saint's heart trembled and he nodded solemnly. "Don't worry." Li Tianlan hung up the video call and looked in the direction of Beihai, waiting for the broken coldness of 9 states. The Xianyuan sword appeared beside him and slowly rotated around him. Li Tianlan stared deeply at the sword, and his eyes sparkled. This kind of light was just like the first time Li Huaqing saw him. With light footsteps, Qin Weibai walked into the restaurant with a bowl of soup. Her soft casual clothes made her look indescribably lazy, and her ruddy face was more charming and enchanting than before. Wang Xingxiao left. Qin Weibai placed the soup in front of Li Tianlan and asked curiously. Li Tianlan nodded silently and said, "What about Xiaomahai?" "I happened to meet him, so I ordered lunch and asked him to go to the kitchen to prepare." Qin Weibai leaned against Li Tianlan and said lazily, "How was Beihai's offer?" "Very good." Li Tianlan said bluntly, "It was done in one step, better than expected." "What's better?" Qin Weibai glanced at Li Tianlan curiously. "Coldness of 9 states." Li Tianlan said quietly, "This is the condition I added," and Wang Xingxiao agreed. Qin Weibai's eyes lit up and she sat up straight. "So, can Xianyuan Feng evolve again?" "It still needs some research, but the human emperor is relatively special among the murderous weapons. If all murderous weapons come from a piece of metal, the human emperor is closer to the core of that piece of metal, like a heart, and has strong energy. Li Tianlan glanced at Qin Weibai. He said softly. When he fought with Xianyuan Feng in the desert, he discovered Xianyuan Feng's secret. When he came back, he asked Qin Weibai about it in detail, but Qin Weibai said that she did not know what was going on. Li Tianlan did not meditate for the past 2 nights, nor did he study Xianyuan Feng. He was busy bullying Qin Weibai, so how could he have time to care about this? But what was certain was that Xianyuan Feng did need the energy of the murderous weapon in any case. Is there enough time? Qin Weibai thought for a while and asked softly. It should be about time. Li Tianlan thought for a while and said, Zhongzhou State still needs some time to prepare. As for Beihai, we can slow down the information we provide him. It's not a big problem. Qin Weibai answered obediently and suddenly asked, what will change this time? Li Tianlan paused and shook his head. It should make it more complete, right? What about for you? Qin Weibai looked at Li Tianlan with quiet eyes. What about for Beihai? For me, it's not very useful, but for Beihai, it's critical. He looked out the window at the endless yellow sand, thinking about when the situation would break out. After a long silence, he said softly, I'm going to raise the sword. Then I'll stay here with you. Qin Weibai smiled sweetly. He couldn't accompany her more, so she would stay with him. Li Tianlan smiled and gently touched Qin Weibai's hair. Don't mess it up. Qin Weibai scratched the back of Li Tianlan's hand and took care of her casually tied black hair. Li Tianlan snapped his fingers. In the subtle light, a subtle light flickered and slowly extended. Finally, it turned into a crystal-clear rose that looked beautiful and gorgeous. This is, Qin Weibai opened her eyes wide and looked at Li Tianlan. For a moment, she even forgot to breathe. She looked at Li Tianlan and then at the rose. The look in her eyes became more and more complicated. The footsteps of fate seemed to come with an irresistible force. Many years ago, or many years later, the man named Dongqing Huangtu was brought over by this force. And now, Li Tianlan finally came to this step. The crystal rose sparkled in Li Tianlan's hand. All the details became more and more perfect, vivid, like the most exquisite work of art, priceless. Li Tianlan gently inserted the rose into Qin Weibai's hair, nodded with satisfaction, and said with a smile, it's beautiful. Chapter 804. Qin Weibai gently touched the rose on her head. Her eyes were pure and soft. This is the first time you've sent me flowers. She smiled gently. The delicate, illusory rose exuded real warmth in her hand. Qin Weibai looked very happy. I like it very much. If there is a chance in the future, I will give you all the flowers in the world. Li Tianlan's voice was soft, and he made an almost absurd promise. But his eyes were serious and persistent. Qin Weibai was in a trance for a moment. She remembered a story. A story from many years ago. The man who had been almost invincible once promised so. Divine weapons should be given to heroes, and flowers should be matched with beauties. He said he would give her all the roses in the world at their wedding. That year, the warrant signed by His Majesty dynasty spread throughout the dark world and all the countries in the world that produced roses. That year, roses became a luxury all over the world. That year, there was a rain of flowers. From Zhongzhou State to Italy. Across the 2 continents of Europe and Asia, across mountains and seas, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, countless rose petals were scattered in the sky for tens of thousands of miles, covering the earth and the sea, from Zhongzhou State all the way to the Holy Land. It was an indescribable rain of flowers. It was romantic, but with an absolute scorching madness and love. But ironically, the groom who did all this did not find his bride at the end. The colorful rain of flowers fell on the earth and the sea, and finally dissipated in the earth and the deep sea. Qin Weibai lowered her head and whispered, this time, I only need 1 flower. That's enough. Not enough. Li Tianlan shook his head. Qin Weibai pulled the chair closer to Li Tianlan and finally leaned into his arms. The rose was quiet in her hair. It was so exquisite that it was almost unreal, but it really existed, so real that it was a little unreal. Li Tianlan put his arm around her shoulder and touched the rose with the other hand. In a slight sound, a string of equally beautiful and incredible crystals appeared where the petals were connected. The crystals fell on the rose and swayed gently with Qin Weibai's breath, looking much more vivid. "It's beautiful," Li Tianlan whispered. Qin Weibai looked up at Li Tianlan and reached out to touch his face. Her eyes were blurred, and she giggled. "Do you want me to reward you again?" Li Tianlan was a little excited, but that was it. Agitated, he shook his head and teased, "I've been squeezed dry by you. Bad people." Qin Weibai gently grabbed Li Tianlan's ear and whispered, "It's you who bullied me." Li Tianlan grabbed her little hand and kissed it. He whispered, "Old Xiao is here." Qin Weibai's eyes became clear for a moment, and she sat up straight. Xiao Mahai walked over with a box of food, his face full of smiles. Li Tianlan scooped a bowl of soup for himself and accompanied Qin Weibai to drink unhurriedly. "Xiao Qing is not bad," he suddenly said, "follow Xiao Bai from now on. She needs someone to take care of her while she's here." Xiao Mahai was stunned and nodded subconsciously. Then he said hesitantly, "Your Highness, you, my sister, put away your messy thoughts and tell her to go back. She's already married. What's the point of sending me to my side?" Li Tianlan shook his head. "I don't need anyone to take care of me. I'm going to be quiet for a while. Find me a dormitory later. You don't have to deliberately arrange anything. You'll be in charge of my meals from now on." "Okay." Xiao Mahai nodded subconsciously. He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Li Tianlan didn't explain anything. His time in the desert prison had entered a countdown. At the latest, 1 year, at the shortest, he would leave here in a few months. There was not much time left for him. He needed to adjust his state so that he could truly stand in his current peak state. Whether it was for Emperor Dong's palace or for the chaos that the Wang family of Beihai would face next, he needed to make a choice and face everything with the strongest posture. So he had to raise his sword. The Lin clan was hidden from the world. And the current patriarch of the Lin clan was now sitting beside him obediently. After leaving the desert prison, Li Tianlan had to let everyone know that in the dark world, whether it was clear sky or shadow, he was the real #1 person in the dark world. Xiao Mahai turned and left the restaurant. Qin Weibai sat beside him and ate rice. She whispered, "Do you feel the pressure?" "What pressure?" Li Tianlan was a little confused. "The Vatican, the Jianghu family of South America, East Island," Qin Weibai said softly. "If you were in the state you were in a year ago, even with Xianyuan Feng, your strength would be slightly worse than Morade's. You should be on par with Tianhai Wuji and slightly better than Yagyu Kurumi. Of course, if you go all out, the result is hard to say. As for now," she paused and whispered, "Beihai's current situation is not very optimistic. If you want to carry it by yourself, you will be under a lot of pressure." "It's okay." Li Tianlan smiled. After all, Qin Weibai didn't understand martial arts. These analyses came from others, so it was inevitable that they were not accurate enough. Even if they were accurate, it was him and Xianyuan Feng a year ago, not now. "It's okay. Don't worry," he said softly. Qin Weibai hesitated and whispered, "It's not that we can't find help." "Who?" Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows. He knew some invincible realm experts who were willing to help him. But now there was basically no one who could help. Tribulation was unconscious, and Situ Tsangyue had not recovered from her serious injury. After all, Saint represented Mount Shu. He could become the deputy palace master of Emperor Dong's palace, but it was not appropriate for him to participate in the affairs of Beihai. Only he could come forward. Northern Europe, the Dark Nights. Qin Weibai whispered, "Flaming fire is there, and the palace master hasn't." She hesitated and continued, before the palace master died, flaming fire played the role of the master of Samsara Palace unless it was necessary. Her strength is not bad. Even if she can't compare with more aid, at least she is enough to hold Yagyu Kurumi, and your pressure will be much less. Flaming fire, Li Tianlan murmured to himself and whispered, how are she and Alpha? Alpha has woken up, but it's hard for him to recover from his serious injury in a short time. Flaming Fire's injury is basically healed, but she rarely contacts us. The palace master died. She is angry with you, me, and many people. But if you are in trouble, she will definitely help. Qin Weibai whispered. Li Tianlan was silent for a while and finally shook his head. No, I can solve it. Don't be careless. Qin Weibai stared at Li Tianlan's face. If there were no accidents, the next year or two would be the most critical period for Li Tianlan. She didn't want any accidents to happen to him. In the current dark world, there are very few people who are qualified to be your enemy, but each of them is not easy to deal with. You're wrong. Li Tianlan looked at her quietly. Everyone who thinks so is wrong. His tone was calm. But there was extreme confidence between the lines. That was not arrogance. It was pure confidence. There are no enemies under my sword. Li Tianlan whispered, only nonentities. Chapter 805. After lunch, Xiao Mahai had already prepared a new dormitory for Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan was very satisfied with it. He ordered that the prison would not entertain outsiders in the near future. He simply shook Qin Weibai's hand, and then began his sword training career that might last for a few months or even a year. Both Li Tianlan and Qin Weibai had absolute confidence in the sword that they had nurtured for a long time and the firmest will. Qin Weibai returned to Li Tianlan's original dormitory. The air in the dormitory still lingered with the lingering scent of romance. She opened the window, sat in front of the computer, thought for a moment, and entered a website. Layers of passwords completely isolated all the possibility of being tracked and monitored. A complicated and exquisite web page appeared in front of Qin Weibai. Qin Weibai pursed her lips, and her dreamy perfect face was calm and rational. She quickly issued a series of orders. On the web page, windows popped up one after another and quickly closed. After doing all this, Qin Weibai opened the communication subsystem of the website and sent a few invitations with her slender fingers. Saint's figure appeared on the communication screen first. The screen began to separate. It separated into 3 small screens. Saint was in the middle. Qin Weibai glanced at him and nodded. The next second, the screen on the left lit up, and military counselor greeted them with an easygoing smile. I thought you were at the airport now. Saint glanced at military counselor and raised his eyebrows. I did. It's not a big deal. Why would I go there? If there is something, it can't be said in an occasion like the airport. Military counselor shook his head carelessly and suddenly laughed. Are you bored? One is in the hospital, and the other is in the prison. I found a good game recently, and I recommend it to you. Saint looked at his careless state and shook his head. Hua Zhengyang, one of the 9 counselors of Zhongzhou State and the leader of the academics, the vice minister of the cabinet, made a high-profile inspection of Huading, and before his departure, he hoped to have a more in-depth discussion with military counselor. Everyone could see that military counselor was Hua Zhengyang's key goal this time. However, when it came to military counselor, it became not a big deal, even less important than his game. It's not necessary. Qin Weibai said blandly, even if you want to express your attitude, you don't have to deliberately snub him. After all, he is a director of Zhongzhou State. What's the benefit of offending him? Of course I would have dealt with him in the past, but now I'm really too lazy to do anything. So what if I offend him? Wait for me to back off. If I do, I'll be like a wild crane, and I can't be bothered to serve these so-called giants. The military advisor shook his head. Saint wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, he did not say anything. Qin Weibai stopped talking. The third small screen on the screen was temporarily unconnected, and the screen was pitch black. How's Tianlan's negotiation with them? Military counselor asked. We've temporarily stabilized the council. Qin Weibai looked at the screen that was still dark and said slowly, Tianlan has decided to cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai. The Wang family of Beihai has agreed to all the conditions we expected and used the broken coldness of 9 states as a bargaining chip. Tianlan has begun to raise the sword. What changes will there be? Military counselor's eyes lit up. Without a doubt, he was asking about the changes that the coldness of 9 states had made to Xianyuan Feng. Qin Weibai did not say anything. She glanced at Saint. She really did not understand martial arts. Although Li Tianlan's current realm was low, his sword intent had touched the end of martial arts. Even if she understood martial arts, she could not say what the so-called changes would be. Only Saint could understand a little. It was not because he was an invincible realm expert. It was because he was Saint. The changes are not that big. Saint thought for a moment and analyzed all kinds of possibilities. But it should be crucial to Beihai. It depends on how well the palace master raises the sword. It's nothing more than the difference between the power of one sword and the power of one person. Qin Weibai subconsciously touched the rose on her head. She touched the petals and could feel that Li Tianlan was watching the conversation here through the rose. Qin Weibai smiled and felt a little relieved. What is this? Military counselor looked at the rose and was a little curious. Where did you buy it? Give me one too, but I want lilies. I want some lilies. This is the palace master's eyes. Saint said with a faint smile, even if he is not here, he can see your every move now. So, if you talk about retiring or something, be careful that he will really beat you up when he sees you. Saint's face stiffened for a moment. He gave a hollow laugh and said hello, your highness. The incredibly delicate rose moved, and the crystal on its stem shook slightly, becoming more and more vivid. Click, a faint noise suddenly rang out. There was an intermittent sound from the third small screen. The screen was still dark. But it showed that it was connected. A somewhat hoarse voice sounded. It seemed to deliberately hide its voice. What's the matter? Saint and military counselor were quiet for a moment. Qin Weibai's eyes flickered, and she asked, how is the situation in Beihai? In the dark screen, the voice was silent for a moment, and then he laughed in a low voice. The undercurrent is turbulent. I have confirmed the whereabouts of more than 2,000 people, all of whom are elites. The Jiang family of South America, Knights Templars, Jifeng Sword Raining School, and Wuji Palace all have elites lurking. It can be said that these families have put in a lot of effort. According to our analysis, in a few months, they can even stuff tens of thousands of people in Beihai, maybe even more. Tens of thousands of elites are at least in the ice-condensing realm. How large of a Beihai corps can they be? He paused and tooted. For Beihai province, this is definitely a disaster, and it can even be said to be the only disaster in their history. More than 10,000 people, military counselor frowned. It's not easy to hide so many people. No matter how Wang Xiaoyao manages, it can't be foolproof. These people can't lurk for long, and they will definitely be exposed. What does that matter? In the dark screen, the man laughed in a low voice. Even if they are exposed, the Wang family of Beihai can't deal with so many people in a short time. At that time, the whole Beihai will be covered with blood, and the trust of Beihai people in the Beihai government and Mount Dibing will drop to the lowest point. The 7 sword-holding families will suffer heavy losses, or even be completely wiped out. These things only need an outbreak, not a tug-of-war. It's hard for Beihai to react. Once it happens, Zhongzhou state can forcefully intervene in everything in Beihai. There's nothing more perfect than this. Saint and military counselor were silent. Qin Weibai was also silent. After a long time, Qin Weibai breathed a sigh of relief and said calmly, "Don't think Beihai is too simple." Yes. The hoarse voice was non-committal. What's the attitude of the Samsara Palace? Hua Xingyang's inspection of Huading should be for military counselor, right? They attach great importance to you, except for 3 visits to the thatched cottage. Our attitude is Tianlan's attitude. Qin Weibai's voice was cold. Your young master is ready to fully cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai. After a short silence, the voice murmured, fully cooperate? Yes. Qin Weibai nodded. Fully cooperate. Tricky. In the dark, he said in a deep voice. So Tianlan needs time. Today, I need you to hand over to military counselor. Whether it's intelligence or resources, we can share them. In any case, we must temporarily stop the actions of the major forces. Chapter 806. Saint had always been a very generous person. He would never hide anything that was destined to be unconcealable. Therefore, after confirming the relationship between Emperor Dong's palace and the Wang family of Beihai, Saint had directly contacted Wang Xingxiao an hour before his helicopter arrived in Yuzhou. Wang Xingxiao was even more generous. The most convenient thing about helicopters was that they didn't have to land at the airport. As the rotors whistled, the helicopter landed directly on the hospital's helipad. Wang Xingxiao walked out of the cabin and looked at Saint with a smile. Saint nodded. Both sides seemed satisfied with each other's attitude. Your Highness, if there's nothing else, shall we depart now? Wang Xingxiao asked directly, without any nonsense or courtesy. If they set off now, they could catch up with dinner when they arrived at Mount Dibbing. Sure. After saying that, Saint walked directly into the helicopter. The helicopter started to take off. Under the gaze of numerous people, it whizzed across the sky of Yuzhou province. They came and went in a hurry. This was the first time Wang Xingxiao had come to Yuzhou since he became the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai. It took less than 5 minutes. But he took away the only new invincible realm expert in Jianghu state. This news swept over the entire Yuzhou city like a hurricane. Before the helicopter left Yuzhou province, some big figures in high places had already known this news. Everyone's attention was not on Saint. Saint boarded the plane of the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai and headed for Beihai province. Countless people were guessing the intentions of the young prodigy who was temporarily imprisoned in the desert prison. The president, the prime minister, and the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai went to the desert prison at the same time, but no one knew the specific results for the time being. The actions of the saints were like a signal that made many people start to think about various possibilities. Chen Fangqing once again appeared in the Golden Autumn Pavilion of the Hidden Dragon Sea, which was known as the office of the president. Li Huaqing pushed away a meeting that had already been arranged and personally received Chen Fangqing. The spacious office was filled with the fragrance of tea. The 2 giants who stood at the peak of Jianghu state sat face to face. The atmosphere was silent and depressing, gloomy and a little scary. What does that mean? Chen Fangqing remained silent for a long time before asking softly. Probing. Li Huaqing's voice was calm. But even the usually calm expression in his eyes now had a hint of fear. There was a dark haze. Probe? Chen Fangqing raised an eyebrow. Non-committal. I don't think he can make up his mind in such a short time. What can North Sea give him? Unless Wang Xingxiao is willing to give him the entire Beihai. Li Huaqing said lightly. Chen Fangqing leaned back and rubbed his temples. He let out a long sigh, not hiding his exhaustion at all. Li Tianlan and Wang Xingxiao. Mount Dibbing, East Imperial Palace. 2 people and 2 forces really took up too much of his energy. This was really related to the future pattern of Jianghu state. His expectations were so great that he was even unwilling to bear any bad risks. To be honest, Chen Fangqing's mentality was out of balance. He knew this, but he couldn't control his irritation. Comrade Xingyang inspected Huading, but the one in Huading didn't go to the airport. Does this mean that he's not optimistic about our operation? It can even be said that some international powers are not optimistic about our operation. Chen Fangqing said softly. Maybe he's just not willing to take too many risks. In the field he's best at, the Wang family of Beihai is no weaker than him, or even stronger. And we can never give too many benefits to people like him, let alone some core things. So it's understandable that he's not willing to get involved. Li Huaqing's voice was flat. Then why did Saint leave with Wang Xingxiao? Chen Fengqing's eyes were gloomy. We just came back. If Wang Xingxiao didn't talk to Li Tianlan, how could Saint be so blatant? Probe. Does he really think that Zhongzhou state can't punish him now? Li Huaqing glanced at him silently and said with a poker face, "What are you going to do? The other party has made a move. No matter what his purpose is, we can't do nothing." Chen Fengqing said flatly, "Some plans for Tiannan can be implemented. They want to help, but we must reduce it appropriately to show Li Tianlan our determination and attitude. Suspend the supply of some weapons and armaments that have been finalized recently." Li Huaqing frowned. At this time, if we act too aggressively, we can only let him get closer to Beihai. Then continue to reduce the aid. Chen Fengqing was expressionless. At the same time, speed up the plan for Beihai. He hasn't broken through to the invincible realm, and his combat capability is limited. The strength of Emperor Dong's palace is also limited. Besides, he has promised us that he will stay in prison during the chaos in Beihai. In this case, let the chaos in Beihai break out earlier. Are you worried that his promise to us is to buy time for him to break through to the invincible realm? Li Huaqing raised his eyebrows. I'm not worried about that. Chen Fengqing's tone was cold. On the contrary, I'm looking forward to it. I will continue to reduce the aid to Xianyuan City, and he will stay in prison. This is his promise. If he dares to break it, it means that he officially refuses our proposal. Kunlun City can't satisfy his appetite. What about the Heavenly Sun? Chen Fengqing said in a low voice, he's ambitious and deserves to be killed. Li Huaqing's body shook slightly. Deserve to be killed? He narrowed his eyes tightly and pondered. Now Emperor Dong's palace is very dangerous. He just doesn't know it. Li Tianlan has potential, but it doesn't mean that Emperor Dong's palace has the strength of the Wang family of Beihai. With the strength of Zhongzhou state, if they really want to attack Emperor Dong's palace, even with Li Tianlan, how long can they hold on? Half a day or a day? If Prime Minister. Li Huaqing suddenly spoke and interrupted Chen Fengqing. Chen Fengqing looked up at him. You're too aggressive. Li Huaqing said in a light tone. Chen Fengqing was stunned. After a long while, he took a deep breath and stopped talking. We all need to calm down. Li Huaqing said. He didn't doubt Chen Fengqing's words. Li Tianlan had great potential. Emperor Dong's palace also had great potential. But if Zhongzhou state really wanted to destroy Emperor Dong's palace, it didn't even need half a day or a day. An hour was enough. The dense missiles could completely cover every corner of Tiannan. In a few seconds, Tiannan could be turned into purgatory and scorched earth. Under that level of artillery fire, no matter how strong Li Tianlan was, he couldn't survive. It was not a question of whether he could do it or not. It was a question of whether he could do it or not. Zhongzhou state was the most powerful country in the world. But Zhongzhou state didn't belong to the two of them. If the two of them really joined forces, don't forget that the army headquarters was still in the hands of Dongqing Wudi. Chen Fengqing was silent for a while and nodded. You're right. It's not suitable to talk about this topic today. Li Huaqing pushed the teacup forward and said slowly, let's talk about something else. Something else? Chen Fengqing looked at him, a little confused. Let's not talk about Beihai or Emperor Dong's palace. Li Huaqing's eyes were a little complicated. Let's talk about Zhongzhou state. Chapter 807. Li Huaqing wanted to talk about Zhongzhou state with Chen Fengqing. There was no doubt that even in the whole world, the two of them were the most qualified to talk about Zhongzhou state. The afternoon was quiet and heavy. The sunlight outside the window shone in through the window, seeming to soak the waves on the hidden dragon sea. The warm light shone on Li Huaqing's face. His eyes were a little complicated. Chen Fengqing's heart sank slightly. He had never seen Li Huaqing's eyes like this. There were all kinds of complicated emotions in those unfathomable abyss-like eyes. There was anger, regret, disappointment, and coldness. And hesitation. Hesitation. This was the emotion that Chen Fengqing didn't want to see the most. Chen Fengqing's palm shook. The delicate white porcelain teacup collided with the lid, making a harsh sound. His expression gradually became determined, like a rock. How can we not talk about Beihai when talking about Jianghu state? Chen Fengqing looked at Li Huaqing's eyes and said slowly. Li Huaqing glanced at him, nodded, and said with a smile, "What do you think of the Wang family of Beihai?" Meritorious. Chen Fengqing said calmly, "But no mistakes are the biggest mistakes." Li Huaqing was silent. No one could deny that. The Wang family of Beihai's contribution to Jianghu state was obvious to all. For hundreds of years, the rise of Jianghu state at every critical moment almost had the shadow of the Wang family of Beihai. In the beginning, they introduced technology from the West. They attacked Star State. They broke the technical blockade with a relatively neutral identity. They strengthened the diplomatic ties between Jianghu state and some Western countries. They contributed their own technology. They supported the construction of Jianghu state. For hundreds of years, the Wang family of Beihai shone the most dazzling light in the history of Jianghu state. Their contributions didn't need to be detailed. Because they couldn't say it. Meritorious. But no mistakes were the biggest mistakes. With the help of the Wang family of Beihai, Jianghu state ascended to the position of the world's top power. But as a part of Jianghu state, what did Beihai ask of Jianghu state? Nothing. There was nothing. The Wang family of Beihai almost never made any request to Jianghu state. This behemoth, which had a president and a prime minister and still controlled the southeast group, had always been detached from Jianghu state, but it was involved in some top-secret plans of Jianghu state. Beihai had no requirements for Jianghu state, nor did it rely on Jianghu state. This meant that they had a lot of choices. In this state, the Wang family of Beihai was like a shadow floating over Jianghu state. There was sunshine and glory. But in any case, it could not hide the fact that the Wang family of Beihai was too detached, too domineering, too strong, and too free. Looking down from above. This was Beihai's attitude toward Jianghu state for hundreds of years. To put it simply, such a North Sea province could not be controlled. No one in power could control the North Sea province. This feeling of being out of control would make anyone in power restless. No one could imagine how much influence Beihai had on Jianghu state. The rise of Jianghu state was the growth of Beihai. Almost every group and every person in power in Jianghu state had seen a similar model. Or rather, they were different models in different eras. The model simulated the impact on Jianghu state if the Wang family of Beihai suddenly collapsed or parted ways with Jianghu state. Every model had a different time, so the consequences were different as well. The model contained a large amount of social data. It was densely packed, but the most eye-catching thing was that one line in the model. That was the line that represented the influence of the Wang family of Beihai on Jianghu state. The line was green at the beginning, but as time went on, it continued to rise, turning into dark green, light gray, light purple, reddish, and scarlet. 20 years ago, that line had already crossed the highest warning line, turning into a sinister scarlet red that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The model was highly credible. A large number of sociologists, economists, psychologists, financial professors, politicians, and a large number of analysts were assembled. Every time the model was built, it was almost a super-large team of thousands of people that analyzed and built it carefully. There was more and more data in the model. The latest model had millions of data. Almost no one knew what these data meant. To put it bluntly, if the Wang family of Beihai suddenly collapsed, or if the Wang family of Beihai broke with Jianghu state, the overall economy of Jianghu state would collapse at an unimaginable speed. Within a week, more than 400 industries in Jianghu state would suffer the first wave of impact. Within a month, the impact would spread to the whole country, and countless industries would be violently shaken. Within half a year, numerous group companies would be forced to go bankrupt. Optimistically, tens of millions of people would lose their jobs, and the social order would be on the verge of collapse. Within a year, the huge social problem would directly become an economic loss that would be unbearable for Jianghu state. The national power would decline seriously, and the currency would depreciate or appreciate crazily. In the southeast region, Huading, Wuxia Xianxia, Jianghu, Jiangnan, Minnan and other provinces would almost be completely out of control. The political order of Jianghu state would also become chaotic. 2 years later, after the first wave of chaos of the Wang family of Beihai passed, Jianghu state would face a more severe situation. It was a disaster. It was not a natural disaster. It was a real disaster. This was the current Wang family of Beihai. They had contributed too much, too much, too much. Brilliant, glorious, gorgeous. It was beneficial to Jianghu state. But it had become a cancer of Jianghu state. Under the current system of Jianghu state, such a transcendent force should not have appeared. But in fact, it did exist. The biggest reason was that Beihai was too free. It had no desire for Jianghu state, but it showed its influence all the time. In this state, Beihai was very much like Rothschild in Europe at its peak hundreds of years ago. Or the Vatican in a more distant time. In fact, there had been a cognition in the dark world hundreds of years ago. Such a cognition was not that the Wang family of Beihai was the strongest force in the dark world. It was about the cognition of the country. 6 major powers in the world. Jianghu state, Star state, Germany, Snow country, England. The 6th. Mount Dibing. Not Beihai province, not the Wang family of Beihai. It was Mount Dibing. Such a cognition was not only because of the strength of Mount Dibing. It was also because of the almost exaggerated influence of Mount Dibing. In such a case, every person in power would ask himself, was Jianghu state the Jianghu state of the Jianghu state people or the Jianghu state of the Beihai people? No one could tolerate such a thing. The clearest fact was that the countless branches of the Wang family of Beihai had more than one president in hundreds of years. However, almost every president who came from North Sea ended up on bad terms with the patriarch's faction. What did this mean? Such a superpower should not exist from the perspective of politics, the country, and the situation. They didn't do anything before because there was no chance. There would be twists and turns inside Beihai. There would be changes and turbulence. But they had the Li family with them at that time. The Li family would help them with all the current waves appropriately. They were close to Beihai, but they always maintained a delicate balance. Jianghu state couldn't do anything. The real opportunity began more than 20 years ago. The Li family collapsed, and no one would escort Beihai when it was in the most dangerous time. This was the best opportunity. Today, more than 20 years later, the opportunity was fully ripe. The new Li family and Beihai had great grievances. The Lin clan, which was inextricably linked with Beihai, also had cracks with them. Rothschild couldn't take care of himself. The Sword Emperor was missing. Mount Dibing, which had internal and external troubles, became a real isolated island. This was the best opportunity, and it could even be said to be the only opportunity in the long future. Chen Fangqing didn't care about any consequences. He had to take down Mount Dibing. Only Beihai province, which was completely controlled by Jianghu state, would not be a cancer. No one could stop him. Li Tianlan couldn't. Li Huaqing couldn't either. They stood together. Li Huaqing couldn't hesitate at all. The Wang family of Beihai can't be left alive. Chen Fangqing said slowly. His voice was low, and he spoke word by word. Li Huaqing furrowed his brows. Today, Chen Fangqing's killing intent was too heavy. It was as if he was mentally prepared for the worst and intended to be tough to the end. This kind of attitude had completely deviated from their original intentions. He could understand the problem in the other party's mentality, but he couldn't accept it. Prime Minister, as you said, Beihai has contributed to Jianghu state. At least now, it seems that their influence is positive, and they haven't caused irreparable disaster to Jianghu state. Therefore, we should slow down the Wang family of Beihai. Any drastic action may cause unimaginable serious consequences. Li Huaqing said softly, this may be a matter that will involve years or even decades of planning. As for the plan that would take years or even decades, it was still the same. We have to calm down and plan slowly. We shouldn't make any drastic moves. Otherwise, this matter will deteriorate. Chen Fangqi narrowed his eyes and said blankly, I don't have time, but you do. We're different. He really didn't have time. Next year would be the end of his term. He hoped that this matter could have a clear outline before this time next year, and everyone would remember his achievements. He wanted to leave a clear situation for Jianghu state, not a mess. Li Huaqing still had 5 years. But Chen Fangqing really didn't have time. So he persuaded Wang Qinglei. So there was the coming chaos of the Wang family of Beihai. Li Huaqing knew this, but he didn't agree or oppose it. Wang Qinglei persuaded several superpowers. What could they do by sneaking into Beihai? Chaos. They only brought chaos, blood, lives, hatred, and wailing to Beihai. And the opportunity of Jianghu state. When several superpowers, many thunder-shocking scriptures, and several invincible realm experts brought unimaginable losses to Beihai, the support of the people of Beihai for Mount Dibing would naturally decline, and their cohesion would become loose. Jianghu state would have the best reason to intervene in Beihai to maintain stability. But such a means was too drastic. Li Huaqing didn't deny that it was effective, but it was not what he liked. But after all, it was not a means of Jianghu state to Beihai. It could only be said that the decisive battle between Wang Qinglei and Mount Dibing was fierce, but at least on the surface, it had nothing to do with Jianghu state. So Li Huaqing let the situation develop to this point. But as time went by, Li Huaqing clearly noticed the change of Chen Fangqing's thinking. The Beihai corps openly expanded. Wang Xingxiao did not hesitate to fight. Xianyuan city developed rapidly. Li Tianlan obeyed in public but opposed in private. More and more things beyond his control made Chen Fangqing's thinking gradually go to extremes. Li Huaqing was still thinking about how to control the Wang family of Beihai. But now Chen Fangqing's mind was full of destruction. Destroy the Wang family of Beihai. Destroy Emperor Dong's palace. I understand your urgency. Li Huaqing said softly, but not only Beihai, but also Jianghu state can't afford too much risk. I'm the president of Jianghu state. Beihai is above me. I don't care about the situation of Beihai, but I have to be responsible for the whole Jianghu state. What do you mean? Chen Fangqing raised his head expressionlessly and looked at Li Huaqing. Li Huaqing stood up, walked to the window, and turned his back to Chen Fangqing. I don't think what we're doing now is wrong, but any approach and any plan must be in line with the general trend. The chaos that Beihai is about to face will be the last test of Jianghu state. If things really can't be done, compromise may be a better way. You want to compromise? Chen Fangqing abruptly stood up. Beihai is not an enemy. Li Huaqing quietly said, the purpose of a battle is not to kill or be killed. When necessary, both sides need a path of retreat. A Pyrrhic victory is no victory. When the odds of victory are not high, what's the point of being tough? Don't you know how many years Jianghu state has prepared for this plan? It's easy to say to give up. In the current situation, how can Jianghu state give up? This is a rare opportunity. If we let Beihai take a breather, Beihai's influence on Jianghu state will be more obvious in the future. Jianghu state is our Jianghu state, not the Wang family's Jianghu state. Do you understand? Chen Fangqing growled, and his face turned red. What you said makes sense, but it's not all right. Li Huaqing said flatly, Jianghu state now has Emperor Dong's palace. In the worst case, it's not unacceptable to let Emperor Dong's palace and Beihai form a new balance. You're thinking about defeat before the battle. The president is really far-sighted. Chen Fangqing sneered with undisguised sarcasm. We don't have a big chance of winning this game, and Beihai has no chance of winning either. We have our own positions. What's tested is the rationality and wisdom of both sides. We'll try to take something from each other when the other side can accept it. Beihai wants freedom, and we want to control it. Li Huaqing turned to look at Chen Fangqing. But that's all. We don't want war. No one wants war. What this game needs most is rationality. Those who are impulsive, have killing intent, and can't control themselves will end up out. Chen Fangqing narrowed his eyes and kept silent for a long time. The best news is that we're well prepared now. After more than 20 years of planning, we have a big chance of winning. So if possible, we can't give the Wang family of Beihai or Emperor Dong's palace too much time. Chen Fangqing lowered his head and kept silent for a while. Then he slowly said, I'll talk to Wang Qinglei, have a good talk. Chapter 808. Wang Qinglei sat quietly in his office, listening to the report of an old subordinate of Yuzhou. Saint, a new invincible realm expert, boarded Wang Xingxiao's plane. As soon as this happened, Wang Qinglei heard about it. When everyone was thinking about the possible meaning behind it, Wang Qinglei was undoubtedly the most uneasy one. However, Wang Xingxiao stayed in Yuzhou for too short a time. Saint was too decisive. So until now, people only knew the news, but they didn't know what happened in that hospital. Is there still no news from the hospital? Wang Qinglei looked at his watch and asked slowly. The person who talked to him on the phone was a deputy mayor of Yuzhou, who was transferred from the position of speaker of a city in Wuxia. He could be regarded as his trusted subordinate, so the other party was very calm about his report, and his questions were very straightforward. No. As Wang Qinglei's old subordinate, Lu Xiu, the deputy mayor of Yuzhou, held the phone with a solemn and serious expression. I've sent someone there, but that hospital is a bit special and is closely watched by the army headquarters. Speaker, this matter is not so simple. I don't think there will be any valuable news in the hospital. The key is the attitude of that person in the desert. He was one of Wang Qinglei's most valued confidants. At the age of 46, he was at the level of deputy governor and the position of deputy mayor of Yuzhou, which was a very valuable position. Such a young age and position matched perfectly. If someone helped him, it was very likely that he would rise rapidly. Wang Qinglei was undoubtedly his benefactor. He was very clear about the estrangement between the speaker and the Southeast group. More clearly, if the speaker could win, he would be rewarded according to his contributions in the future. After a year, he was very likely to go further. Even if he couldn't be promoted in Yuzhou, it was very likely that he would be sent to serve as the governor of a province. And if Wang Qinglei failed, as a confidant, Lu Xiu would not have a good end. The facts were in front of him. He naturally had to do his best for the things that the old leader cared about. Wang Qinglei snorted softly and rubbed his tightly frowned eyebrows. The attitude of that person in the desert? He smiled bitterly and somewhat self-deprecatingly. No matter what the attitude of that person was, it was not something he could influence. Lu Xiu heard Wang Qinglei's bitter smile, hesitated, and continued, Speaker, don't forget that you are also a member of the Wang family of Beihai. Wang Qinglei was stunned. He narrowed his eyes and said, What are you trying to say? You're the most important figure in the Wang family of Beihai. If you win this game, you'll be the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai in the future. Now what Mount Dibing can give to that person, you might be able to. Lu Xiu remained calm and collected. After a brief silence, Wang Qinglei let out a long breath and calmly said, Let's call it a day. Pay more attention to the hospital and look for me if there's any problem. Lu Xiu smiled, nodded, and hung up the phone. Wang Qinglei stood up and paced around his office. After thinking for a while, he picked up his phone and called Chen Fangqing. The phone rang twice before it was hung up. At this time, Chen Fangqing, who had received the news, should be discussing with Li Huaqing. Wang Qinglei returned to his desk, dealt with a few documents, and waited silently. More than an hour later, his phone suddenly rang. Wang Qinglei answered the phone calmly. "Hello, Prime Minister." "Yes, Comrade Qinglei, are you looking for me?" On the phone, Chen Fangqing's voice was steady and calm. His mentality might be a little unbalanced. But compared with Wang Qinglei, who had no way out, Chen Fangqing still had the right to control him. Wang Qinglei smiled and said in a deep voice, "What do you think of Saint's actions, Prime Minister?" Chen Fangqing did not speak. Whether this is the test of Emperor Dong's palace or the decision of Emperor Dong's palace, Li Tianlan's wild ambition has undoubtedly been exposed. "Prime Minister, I think we must take action." Wang Qinglei continued. "What do you think?" Chen Fangqing asked slowly after a moment of silence. "I think we should pay a proper visit to Minister Dongsheng." Wang Qinglei said without hesitation, not only Minister Dongsheng Wudi, but also Minister Dongsheng Hanguang. In addition, we need a clear attitude from the four spirit generals of Zhongzhou State, Gong Sunqi, Li Wangsheng, and even Sai City, all the organizations that keep close ties with Emperor Dong's palace. They can be close to Li Tianlan, but they can't forget their responsibilities in Zhongzhou State. "Go on," Chen Fangqing said with no fluctuation in his voice. "In addition, I need the full cooperation of Zhongzhou State." Wang Qinglei continued. Yuzhou, Hidden Dragon Sea. In the Prime Minister's office, Chen Fangqing narrowed his eyes and his voice was a little gloomy. "Full cooperation? Activate all the forces of Zhongzhou State left in Beihai." Wang Qinglei's voice was decisive and ruthless. "There's no time. I can't afford the slightest risk now. I personally think Li Tianlan hasn't made up his mind yet. Saint's going to Beihai may be a test of Emperor Dong's palace, or he has made up his mind but hasn't invested resources. Anyway, we have to show him Zhongzhou State's determination to take Beihai, show him the power of Zhongzhou State, and the consequences of going against the will of Zhongzhou State. I suggest using all the chess pieces of Zhongzhou State left in Beihai, cooperate with the Vatican and East Island, and stir up the greatest chaos as soon as possible before Li Tianlan makes up his mind." Chen Fangqing's body tensed quietly for a moment, and he didn't speak. "There's no time." Wang Qinglei said blandly, "Don't say that Zhongzhou State doesn't have enough power in Beihai. It's impossible. Prime Minister, when you came to me, it was 15 years ago. At that time, I was still a deputy governor of Wuxia, not even a director of Wuxia. You were already prepared at that time. If I'm not wrong, when the Li family collapsed more than 20 years ago, you started to operate. But at that time, it was not you and President Li Huaqing who were responsible for these things. After more than 20 years of planning, I'm looking forward to how powerful Zhongzhou State is hiding in Beihai. I personally think our current strength is enough." Chen Fangqing was silent for a long time, and then said slowly, "I don't deny that what you said makes sense, but I can't give you an answer on this matter for a while." He was telling the truth. Zhongzhou State started to plan this more than 20 years ago. At that time, neither he nor Li Huaqing was in the position now. In order to activate all the forces, they had to visit some retired but still had great influence. Only when everyone united their thoughts could they exert the most powerful combat effectiveness. Wang Qinglei said yes and said, "I will persuade the Vatican and East Island." "Okay." Chen Fangqing nodded and suddenly said, "If this plan is passed in Zhongzhou State, Beihai will inevitably be in chaos." "How chaotic do you want Beihai to be?" Wang Qinglei was stunned. He didn't seem to think about this. He held the phone and thought about it for a long time before he laughed. His smile was elegant and gentle. But there was madness in his eyes. "Turn the world upside down." He held the phone and said calmly. Chapter 809. Wang Qinglei's voice was clear and steady. It was because of the clarity that Chen Fangqing could clearly feel the depression and madness in his voice. This kind of emotion was so strong that it seemed to hit Chen Fangqing across the phone. It was so heavy that Chen Fangqing felt a little suffocated. To turn the Wang family of Beihai upside down. Even if he was the prime minister of Jianghu state, he couldn't imagine what it would be like. But there was no doubt that it was indeed the picture he had been looking forward to for a long time. Now it seemed that Wang Qinglei seemed to be crazier than they thought. Chen Fangqing was a little relieved. He was also a little shocked. The plan did start a long time ago. In the first moment after the collapse of the Li family, the top leadership of Jianghu state had begun to operate secretly. Wang Qinglei was not the first candidate they chose. Before this, they'd even vaguely tried to contact Wen Xiyuan, but they were all rejected. Moreover, he didn't give them any leeway. Even the current two giants of the Southeast group, they had secretly probed them before. The repeated failures did not make Jianghu state give up the idea. In fact, the continuous growth of the Wang family of Beihai had reached the point where Jianghu state had to try its best to weaken it. They had no choice, just like the Wang family of Beihai was destined not to compromise. Therefore, although the leaders of that session did not choose a satisfactory spokesperson, they took advantage of the chaos of the Li family, the turmoil of the Southeast group, and the silence of Beihai to place a large number of chess pieces in Beihai. These chess pieces quietly took root in Beihai, involving various fields, the Southeast group, and the Beihai core. Then it was another leader's effort. The chess pieces scattered in Beihai grew strong and grew, but they still did not choose a good spokesperson. In the middle of that session, Wang Qinglei appeared in everyone's sight. His age and his ability made him attract a lot of people's attention at the first time. At that time, Wang Qinglei was like the current Wang Jingxin. He was low-key and gentle, but extremely dazzling in the eyes of those who cared about him. This time, the contact was unexpectedly smooth. The two sides almost hit it off. Wang Qinglei passed all the tests and inspections. In the past 10 years, every heavyweight of the Southeast group had something to do with Wang Qinglei's behind-the-scenes operation. Similarly, every time Wang Qinglei was promoted, with the support of the Southeast group, it also had something to do with the academics and the Prince group. What surprised Chen Fangqing and others most was that Wang Qinglei actually drew Wang Xiaoyao to his side. They didn't trust Wang Xiaoyao at first. The lineal descendant of Mount Dibing was either a single lineal descendant, or a brother or a sister, or a brother and a sister. For hundreds of years, the brothers who occupied the position of patriarch in Mount Dibing had never betrayed the clan. Wang Xiaoyao could be said to be the first case. Until now, Wang Xiaoyao had done a lot of things in secret. Even so, Chen Fangqing was still a little wary of him and did not pull Wang Xiaoyao into the core circle of their conspiracy against Beihai. But it had to be admitted that as Wang Xiaoyao approached Wang Qinglei, the two of them joined forces, and the arrangement inside Beihai province became easier. Today, the power of Wang Qinglei and Wang Xiaoyao, the power of the Vatican, East Island, the Jiang family of South America, and the power of Jianghu state. Adding everything together, they already had enough power to shake the foundation of the North Sea. That was why Wang Qinglei said he wanted to turn the North Sea province upside down. Confident and crazy. What do you need from me? Chen Fangqing was silent for a moment before he slowly said. Give us enough credit. Wang Qinglei said. Chen Fangqing frowned. You should know that we have never doubted you. Maybe we had an investigation before, but after so many years of cooperation, no one will doubt your position and determination. I mean us. Wang Qinglei said blandly. You mean, Wang Xiaoyao? Chen Fangqing narrowed his eyes. He is not only Wang Tianzong's younger brother, but also an invincible realm expert. At present, His Majesty, Morade, Jiang Guochu, Tianhai Wuji, and Yagyu Kurumi. On the surface, we have 5 invincible realm experts. And there is another invincible realm expert in the dark, who is the only invincible realm killer in the dark world. 6 people. This kind of strength is very strong. But facing the Wang family of Beihai, no one dares to say that we are 100% sure. If Li Tianlan joins forces with the Wang family of Beihai, who knows to what extent Li Tianlan's strength will be? Who knows to what extent the strength of Saint will be? Who is sure that the Dark Knights will not intervene? Who is sure that the Lin clan will stay out of it? There are too many variables in this matter. Pulling Wang Xiaoyao into this circle can only be good. Wang Qinglei said. He is just one person. What can he change? Chen Fangqing didn't take it seriously. Don't underestimate Wang Xiaoyao. Wang Qinglei laughed in a low voice. On the surface, although he just entered the Invincible Realm last year, in fact, no one knows when he broke through the Invincible Realm. Maybe he alone can stop Li Tianlan. If Zhongzhou State warns Mount Shu, Saint can't act rashly. In Northern Europe, it has been a bit lively recently. Wang Xiaoyao and His Majesty can join forces in Northern Europe and make trouble in Northern Europe so that flaming fire can't get away. In the Lin clan, Wang Xiaoyao can also use the resources in his hands to join forces with the Jianghu family of South America. They target the branch of the Lin clan in South America, and Lin Fengting will be busy with his own affairs. Do you understand? Wang Xiaoyao can play a key role in this chaos. Not to mention these, we can't ignore his own combat capability. He has been working with me for many years, but he has never entered this circle. Your concerns will also become his concerns. Chen Fangqing held the phone and didn't speak for a long time. Trust Wang Xiaoyao? He always felt that something was wrong. But there was no reason to doubt what Wang Xiaoyao had done in the past few years. The main reason was his identity. He was Wang Tianzong's younger brother. They had the same father and mother. I've always wondered why Wang Xiaoyao would betray Wang Tianzong with his identity. Chen Fangqing asked. He had raised this question, but Wang Qinglei's explanation was not thorough enough. Because of his name, Wang Xiaoyao. Wang Tianzong's original intention was to let him be King Xiaoyao for a lifetime, the kind without power. But who would be willing to do so? Wang Tianzong is so dazzling. He was suppressed too much by my brother's side. That's it? Chen Fangqing shook his head subconsciously. Wang Qinglei was silent for a moment and continued, it also has something to do with Qin Weibai. Chen Fangqing paused slightly, narrowed his eyes, and whispered, what do you mean? Wang Xiaoyao likes Qin Weibai. Wang Qinglei's voice was low. He doesn't pretend to like her. He really likes her. That kind of love and affection you may not be able to imagine. It can even be said that he thinks about her day and night. Wang Qinglei smiled. As far as I know, before Li Tianlan appeared, Wang Xiaoyao personally begged Wang Tianzong, hoping that Wang Tianzong would personally propose marriage to Samsara Palace. The conditions he offered were too outrageous, so Wang Tianzong refused. The two brothers quarreled for a long time. It is said that Wang Xiaoyao even knelt down, but Wang Tianzong never agreed. Later, Wang Tianzong met Qin Weibai once. It is said that he wanted Qin Weibai to marry Wang Shengshao. Obviously, a woman like Qin Weibai is very suitable to be the hostess of the Wang family of Beihai. Her role is even greater than that of summer solstice. There is no need to elaborate the details, but everything should be true. I think the estrangement between the two brothers began at that time. Wang Xiaoyao also began to test me at that time and gave me preliminary cooperation. Later, when Li Tianlan appeared, Wang Xiaoyao and Wang Tianzong lost their thoughts. So, Chen Fangqing's face softened. For a woman? Qin Weibai is not an ordinary woman. Wang Qinglei said lightly. Chen Fangqing was silent. Qin Weibai was indeed not an ordinary woman. Her perfection was from the inside out, from appearance to thought. In the eyes of outsiders, she was absolutely a perfect, almost evil, or even terrible woman. If this kind of woman did not have Li Tianlan and wanted to take advantage of her own advantages, she definitely had the potential to ruin the country and the people. The first beauty of Zhongzhou State. Chen Fangqing had also heard of this title. But the funny thing was that the so-called first beauty of Zhongzhou State did not even have a nationality of Zhongzhou State. And the most important point. Wang Qinglei continued, in the content of my cooperation with Wang Xiaoyao, if we finally overthrow Mount Dibing, the new patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai will be him, not me. Chen Fengqing's body shook, and all the doubts in his heart seemed to be relieved in an instant. He smiled and said slowly, "Are you willing to do that?" Wang Qinglei also smiled and did not speak. Chapter 8:10. When Yu Chuanguang walked into Wang Qinglei's office, there was dead silence in the office. As the owner, Wang Qinglei sat on the chair quietly and looked at the ceiling. He was as silent as a statue. "Something on your mind?" Yu Chuanguang smiled and asked casually. As the two biggest rebels of the Southeast group, the relationship between Speaker Wu Yue and the governor could no longer be described as harmonious. It was clear that the fate of the two had been firmly intertwined. For this reason, the difference between the duties of the governor and the speaker had become extremely blurred between the two. Under the overwhelming pressure from the outside world, the two who held Wu Yue tightly in their hands were like true confidants, and there was no longer any courtesy between them. Wang Qinglei opened his eyes, glanced at him, and shook his head silently. This movement was simple and pure. It did not mean to deny, but it showed endless exhaustion. This was the Wang Qinglei in Yu Chuanguang's eyes. In the eyes of the Southeast group, he had wild ambitions. In the eyes of the Wang family of Beihai, he was unforgivable. In the eyes of Chen Fengqing, Li Huacheng, and others, he was crazy and extreme. In the hearts of many cadres of Wu Yue, he was deep and unpredictable. Different people had different Wang Qinglei in their hearts. In Yu Chuanguang's eyes, Wang Qinglei was just a bearer who was about to be completely crushed by the huge pressure. He had not been the governor of Wu Yue for a long time, but when he was in contact with Wang Qinglei in private, he had always been like this. Wang Qinglei knew that there might be some factors that wanted to lower his and Wang Xiaoyao's guard, but he also knew that during this period of time, these years, and even these years, Wang Qinglei did not have a good time. Years of secret arrangements and plans were exposed little by little, and Wang Qinglei completely appeared in everyone's sight. In the crucial change of office only 1 year, the slightest movement in Jianghu state was enough to make Wang Qinglei highly nervous. "It's okay." Yu Chuanguang sat down, as if to comfort him, but his tone was calm and confident. "It's just that Saint went to Mount Dibbing. It doesn't mean that he will cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai. It's just a possibility. We don't have to be so nervous. How can it be so simple?" Wang Qinglei shook his head, and his voice was a little hoarse. "Even if they really join hands, it's nothing." Yu Chuanguang said, "Li Tianlan is indeed very strong, but he is not as strong as the rumors say. He is now the #1 expert in the dark world besides Lin Fengting. If he really dares to appear in Beihai, Xiaoyao can stop him. As for the other invincible realm experts who are related to him, you can handle the foreign ones and Xiaoyao can handle the domestic ones. In terms of pure strength, we still have the absolute upper hand." Wang Qinglei thought about it, smiled bitterly, and lit a cigarette. "That's true, but when I think about it carefully, I still feel a little uneasy. I don't know where the problem is, or if I'm too worried about gains and losses." He took a deep drag on the cigarette, exhaled the smoke bit by bit, and said softly, "We can't afford to lose." Yu Chuanguang was silent for a moment, then nodded. He was indeed a sore loser. Wang Qinglei couldn't afford to lose. He could not afford to lose either. There was no doubt that he came to Wu Yue at great risk, or it could be said that he came to Wu Yue purely because of his friendship with Wang Xiaoyao. He used to be the mayor of Huading. In the eyes of most people, the mayor of a municipality serving as the governor of a province was definitely not a promotion, especially when Yu Chuanguang was the core of the Southeast group. It was impossible for ordinary people to sit in the position of mayor of Huading. The Southeast group sent him here to prepare to regain the supreme power of Huading. However, Yu Chuanguang chose Wu Yue, which directly caused the Southeast group to be forced to give up the plan to take over Huading, or at least to postpone the plan for several years. He gave up the position of Jianghu State Councillor and Speaker of Huading. It was for the position of Jianghu State Councillor and Speaker of Wu Yue. If Wang Qinglei could go up next year, this position could only be his. This was the balance between Wang Qinglei and Wang Xiaoyao. Yu Chuanguang played the core role. Only when he completely controlled Wuxia could Wang Xiaoyao control the Wang family of Beihai in the future. If Wang Qinglei couldn't go up, Yu Chuanguang would also lose the opportunity to enter the Zhongzhou state parliament. Standing in this position, under the current situation, he and Wang Qinglei were facing the same situation. They were either soaring up the sky or falling straight into the abyss. Don't be too nervous. Yu Chuanguang was silent for a while, shook his head, and said softly, "It is very likely that the several invincible realm experts related to Li Tianlan will not participate in this matter. Li Tianlan is also so powerful that he makes people desperate. One more person won't affect the overall situation." Wang Qinglei nodded, muttered, and said slowly, "At present, it seems so." He shook his head again. "Anyway, the sooner the chaos happens, the better. A long night is fraught with trouble. I can't afford to delay it." Xiaoyao also means the same. Yu Chuanguang said slowly, "According to him, Mount Dibing seems to have found something abnormal. At present, the work of investigating foreign forces is much more careful than before. They should have noticed something. It's too late." Wang Qinglei twitched the corner of his mouth, revealing a sneer. The little guy is still too inexperienced. When it came to the core members of the Wang family of Beihai, even if they were standing on the opposite side, Yu Chuanguang still didn't say anything. "I don't want to wait anymore." Wang Qinglei said, "They say that we need to be fully prepared. Hey, in fact, there is no such thing as complete. For me, half of the certainty is enough to take a gamble. I just talked to the Prime Minister on the phone. In principle, the Prime Minister agreed to use the power of Zhongzhou State in Beihai. But I still need to communicate with other comrades to make a final decision, especially some old comrades. I will be in Yuzhou during this period. You should pay more attention to Wuxia. If there is anything, you can contact me and we will discuss it." Yu Chuanguang narrowed his eyes, nodded, and said with a smile, "Okay, have a safe trip." Wang Qinglei said yes and continued, "In addition, we need to inform Xiaoyao. If we are right, the girl Yuatong is the key to the successful cooperation between the Wang family of Beihai and Emperor Dong's palace. We'd better find her." "How can it be so easy?" Yu Chuanguang shook his head. "Little princess has only been familiar with a few places since she was a child. Beihai, Yuzhou, Wuxia, Huading. She has searched everywhere, but there is no news at all. Zhongzhou State is so big. If she wants to hide, finding her is as difficult as finding a needle in a haystack. Anyway, we still have to try." Wang Qinglei said, "As for Wuxia, organize an investigation in the near future." Yu Chuanguang nodded and didn't say anything. He suddenly asked, "Whose idea is it to find little princess? Yours? Or the Prime Minister?" "It's the council's idea," Wang Qinglei said calmly. Yu Chuanguang said yes, and his eyes were a little cold. Chapter 8:11. It was not the first time for Saint to come to Mount Dibing. Whether as the sword master of Mount Shu or as the super master of Samsara Palace, he had been here more than once. But this time was undoubtedly the best treatment he had ever received. Wang Xingxiao was well prepared in this regard. No one knew that Saint was here to take the coldness of 9 states, but everyone knew that Saint was here on behalf of Emperor Dong's palace. In this way, the Wang family of Beihai would not be too exaggerated in any way. The more ostentatious it was, the more close the relationship between the two sides could be shown, and the more it could make some people who were secretly ready to make trouble inside and outside the parliament worry. Mount Dibing, which had been split by a sword, had been repaired a lot by the Wang family of Beihai regardless of the cost. At least it was no longer ugly. The mountain and the foot of the mountain had become green and brilliant again. The large construction site at the top of the mountain had been reduced to almost non-existence, but some details still needed to be adjusted and repaired. The helicopter landed directly on the tarmac at the top of Mount Dibing. One by one, the important figures who played important roles in Beihai had begun to line up to greet them. A little farther away, the elites of the internal defense forces of the Wang family of Beihai were lining up. The full heaven punishment troops stood on the other side. Firmament, Enchantress, Xian Ming, and other well-known experts in the dark world stood on the other side of the heaven punishment troop. The patriarchs of the 7 major sword-holding families of Beihai province had all arrived. The sun was shining on Mount Dibing, but it was silent. A solemn and chilling atmosphere surrounded the entire top of the mountain, iron-blooded and powerful. Saint got off the plane and watched all this silently. He did not think that the Wang family of Beihai wanted to scare him. But there was no doubt that at such a critical moment, the Wang family of Beihai was showing its strength to make those who cooperated with them feel at ease. Saint's eyes turned and finally fell on a woman. It was a woman who looked to be in her 40s. She was middle-aged, but her body was not bloated. Instead, she was extremely tall. She was about 1.9 meters tall and had a moderate figure. Her appearance was not considered beautiful. A shallow scar extended from her face to the back of her ear. She stood there quietly, motionless. Next to her, slightly behind her, were Firmament and Enchantress. Saint narrowed his eyes. He had never seen this woman. There was no such woman in the information of Samsara Palace. As if sensing Saint's gaze, the woman lifted her head and glanced at him before nodding slightly. Saint was expressionless, but the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. He took a deep look at the man and asked, "Who is that?" "She's Phoenix." Wang Xingxiao smiled and said softly, "My aunt." After a pause, he added, "Kiss auntie." Saint's pupils suddenly contracted. Kiss my aunt? Which also meant, was she Xia Zhi's biological sister? Phoenix. Saint had never heard of this name, nor had he heard of this code name, but he could clearly feel how powerful this person was. She just stood there quietly, but her faintly discernible aura seemed to cover Mount Dibing. It was obscure, but extremely strong and blazing. That kind of aura was not deliberately aimed at Saint, but it made him feel a clear sense of oppression. The other party was very strong. Even in the eyes of an invincible realm expert, the other party was probably incredibly strong. This kind of strength and sharpness had almost surpassed the so-called realm. It was not the first time Saint had seen such a person. There were also such people in Jianghu state, and there was more than one. Li Tianlan in this state was one of them. Tribulation before the chaos in Eastern Europe was also one of them. Saint took a deep breath, glanced at the direction of the woman, and slowly said, "Sorry for my disrespect." The two sides were hundreds of meters apart. Phoenix slightly raised her head and glanced at him. Her body moved. The next second, she had come directly to Saint. At that moment, in Saint's perception, it was like a beast suddenly pouncing on him. In an instant, the sword intent surged all over Saint's body. The bright sunlight seemed to be twisted around him for a moment, and countless sword energy were fighting. It was all out of instinct. He took a step forward as if he was about to make a move. The woman froze and took another step back, indicating that she had no malice. Saint took a deep breath, suppressed the sword energy, and shook his head. "Sorry." He whispered, "My realm is not stable. I'm a little impolite." "Very strong." Phoenix's eyes lit up completely. "I heard that he is a new invincible realm expert in Jianghu state. If you are not busy, let's have a fight." "Auntie, he came here to take away a very important thing for the person in Emperor Dong's palace, not to fight." Wang Xingxiao smiled bitterly. "The one in the desert?" Phoenix slightly raised her eyebrows and thought for a moment. "In a year, if he has grown up, should not be his opponent." Wang Xingxiao did not speak. Phoenix took another look at Saint. "Let's have a fight." She used a declarative sentence. "Not today." Saint was a little regretful. "I'm in a hurry to go back." Phoenix said, "I'm not interested in the cooperation between you. Whether Emperor Dong's palace and Beihai are enemies or friends, as long as they don't provoke me, I won't intervene. Leave an address, and I'll find it when things here are over. Her words were a little contradictory. And she was extremely straightforward. Saint was a little confused. Auntie came here to wait for second uncle. Except for second uncle, she won't care about anything in Beihai. Wuxia Xianxia sighed and said softly. Saint suddenly nodded to show that he understood. Many people in Jianghu state knew that Summer Solstice's family had a complicated relationship with Mount Dibing. Summer Solstice married Wang Tianzong and was dead set on him. Everyone thought that this matter was over. But if Phoenix was Summer Solstice's younger sister, then she naturally had no good feelings for Mount Dibing. But why did she come here to deal with Wang Xiaoyao? Saint recalled the information about Samsara Palace again, but he could not find any clues. He could only temporarily suppress his doubts. Anyway, Phoenix's arrival could be regarded as adding a top combat force to Mount Dibing. Even if she was only responsible for dealing with Wang Xiaoyao, her role could not be ignored. What realm is it? Saint asked slowly. Ice condensing mirror. Phoenix's tone was calm and natural. Chi controlling, ice condensing, fire flaming, thunder shocking. Invincible. Saint froze for a while and finally laughed. He seemed to think this matter was very interesting. Okay. He nodded and said, "This is my phone number. When this matter is over, you can come to Yuzhou to find me." Phoenix nodded and turned to leave. Saint narrowed his eyes and looked around again. Only then did he find that at this time on Mount Dibing, there were some relatively strange or completely strange faces. The so-called relatively strange referred to the fact that they had never appeared on Mount Dibing before, but they existed in the secret database of Emperor Dong's palace. And completely strange meant that they were really completely strange. There was no doubt that the Wang family of Beihai had been fully prepared to deal with the upcoming chaos. Saint looked around and whispered to himself, "There is still one less invincible realm expert." What invincible realm? Wang Xianxia was a little confused. Nothing. Saint smiled and said, "Let's go and get the sword." Chapter 8:12. The black blade of coldness of 9 states shone with a dark luster under the bright light. All the staff in the laboratory had left early. Not long after the ultra-high temperature furnace went out, the empty hall was silent and scorching. The two halves of the divine weapon were placed on a huge platform. It was deep and heavy. It was quiet. It was a little cold. Even desolate. Saint's palm slowly touched the cold blade. The sword intent of coldness of 9 states seemed to resonate with his palm, but it was a little slow and looked weak. Saint's eyes were a little regretful or pitiful. What a pity. Winner takes all. Wang Xianxia stood beside him, calm and emotionless. Saint nodded and then shook his head. He looked at coldness of 9 states, narrowed his eyes slightly, and whispered, "How about coming with me?" Coldness of 9 states already had its own will. Perhaps it was not as smart as Xianyuan Feng and could not express its emotions, but strictly speaking, it was also a life now, just a little ignorant. Saint gently tapped on the blade of coldness of 9 states and whispered, "I'll take you to find the other you." The blade of coldness of 9 states suddenly shook. An indistinct emotion spread out from the sword. There was some hesitation, some reluctance, and some yearning. After all, swords and people were different. People might need some other things to understand what Xianyuan Feng was. But the ignorant coldness of 9 states would not. In Eastern Europe, when the two swords collided in an instant, it could already understand that it was another version of itself. A more complete version of itself. It was cut off by the other version of itself. Saint looked at it quietly, feeling its reluctance, and didn't say anything. He didn't know if it was the same when the Wang family of Beihai handed coldness of 9 states to Dongqing Huangtu for the first time many years ago or many years later. But any life longed for completeness and freedom. So he didn't say anything more and waited quietly. Crack. In the clear sound of collision, the two broken blades of coldness of 9 states collided slightly and seemed to have made a decision. The two blades moved slightly toward Saint and quickly shrank. Saint held out his palm. Coldness of 9 states, which had become extremely soft, wrapped Saint's finger and spread all the way up, finally turning into a black arm guard. Saint lowered his head and touched the arm guard, feeling a little happy. He turned around and looked at Wang Xingxiao. Are you leaving after dinner? Wang Xingxiao smiled calmly. He seemed to be emotionless, but at the same time, he seemed to be suppressing all his emotions. From this moment on, the first murderous weapon that had accompanied the Wang family of Beihai for hundreds of years left the Wang family of Beihai. In its long life in the future, it would accompany another chosen one. This fact was bloody for everyone in the Wang family of Beihai. But Wang Xingxiao didn't show anything. For the first time, Saint sensed an unfathomable shrewdness from the new patriarch of North Sea. This was something that even Li Tianlan did not have. A hint of wariness flashed across his eyes, and he shook his head. No need. He said softly, I'm in a hurry to go back. I can't leave the hospital for too long. Wang Xingxiao was silent for a moment and nodded. All right. He gestured for Saint to leave with him and asked softly, how are the injuries of the two princes? Since they were cooperating, Saint didn't mind revealing some information. He shook his head and said, not very good. Today, many wounded people from the chaos in Eastern Europe were still living in the hospital he guarded. More than a year had passed, and some people had left the hospital, such as Gong Sun Qi and Yi of the 4 spirit generals. Black Tortoise would also leave the hospital in the near future. In the hospital he guarded, the 2 people with the most serious injuries were also the 2 with the strongest strength. Tribulation. Li Shi. Their injuries still did not improve. So far in the battle in Eastern Europe, the 2 were still in a deep coma, and there was no improvement. Li Shi's position was unclear. If Tribulation could wake up, the first expert in the dark world might not be Lin Fengting. Now, an invincible realm killer with the code name Ju had become the top killer in the dark world and stood at the top. If Tribulation could wake up and recover, no one could imagine how terrible a super assassin who had crossed the boundary of the peak of the invincible realm would be. Wang Xingxiao nodded. Hearing the news, he didn't know whether his mood was good or bad. The helicopter on the tarmac was on standby after being resupplied. Saint shook hands with Wang Xingxiao and didn't say much. He boarded the helicopter and left Mount Dibbing directly. Next, he would go to Zhongyuan to deliver the coldness of 9 states, and then return to Yuzhou as fast as possible to guard those seriously injured people standing beside Li Tianlan. Wang Xingxiao stood on the tarmac and looked up at the helicopter taking off. It went farther and farther in the air and finally became a small black dot. He didn't speak for a long time. Without a sound, the tall phoenix walked over. Her footsteps were as light as a large cat's. This man is very strong. She looked up at the direction where the helicopter left and said slowly. How can the deputy palace master of Emperor Dong's palace not be strong? Wang Xingxiao said quietly, according to our analysis, although he is over 40 years old, he is still very likely to step into the peak of the invincible realm. His foundation is too stable. Phoenix nodded and said yes. Did he take the coldness of 9 states? Phoenix asked. Wang Xingxiao said yes. He took the murderous weapon human emperor? She repeated it again. Wang Xingxiao's eyebrows moved, and he said yes again. Ha! Phoenix laughed and said with some sarcasm, the Wang family of Beihai is really a big family. Wang Xingxiao didn't say anything. Everyone is worried about the future of Beihai. I don't think there is anything to worry about. Phoenix sneered slightly. How can such a big family business collapse in an instant? You are now the patriarch of Beihai. Today you send human emperor, tomorrow you send the troops of all heavens, the day after tomorrow you send the immortality potion, and if you can't, send half of Beihai. There is a long time in the future, and Beihai is so big. Wang Xingxiao frowned suddenly, looked at Phoenix, and said slowly, who told you that I'm sending the family business? I don't need someone to tell me. Phoenix said faintly, "That's the truth. No matter how big the foundation of Beihai is, it is impossible to disdain murderous weapons. If you tell me that human emperor is not the family business of the Wang family of Beihai, I will believe it. Even if you say that you have 10,000 human emperors, I will believe it, as long as you believe it yourself. I'm very happy to see Beihai like this." She turned slowly. "But I still feel sorry for my sister. The Wang family of Beihai doesn't need anyone to feel sorry for her or pity her." Wang Xingxiao said softly, "Of course, the Wang family of Beihai won't have 10,000 human emperors. But you are right about one thing. The Wang family of Beihai is indeed a big family business." He looked at Phoenix's back and said faintly, "I can give human emperor because the Wang family of Beihai has something better than human emperor. And, why don't you understand such a simple truth?" Chapter 8:13. Late at night. The dishes on the table, which had been warmed several times, were now completely cold. The fragrant tea leaves also became bland and tasteless. Qin Weibai took a sip of water. Her fingers gently moved the mouse, and she quickly and attentively flipped through the files on the computer. The computer screen, which was much wider than an ordinary person's, was split into two. On the left screen, dense and complicated data flowed slowly, while on the right screen, the military advisor was talking non-stop. Qiushui City. As far as we know, Wang Xiaoyao established a reliable cooperative relationship with Huangfu Renjia about 3 years ago. The reason for the cooperation was that Wang Xiaoyao helped Huangfu Renjia catch a fugitive who was very important to the Huangfu family and helped him become the second-in-command of the Huangfu family's intelligence system. In the video, the military counselor looked down at the documents and said in an orderly manner, "At present, we can confirm that Huangfu Renjia has 6 secret locations, 4 in Qiushui City and 2 in Kanglan City. There are 5 locations that are highly suspicious, and we can provide you with 2 locations." Any information transfer was complicated and cumbersome, especially the entanglement and transactions between several major forces. Emperor Dong's palace, Samsara Palace, Wang family of Beihai. On this day, the intelligence of the 3 major forces was completely intertwined. Li Tianlan was nurturing his sword. The parliament of Zhongzhou State could not wait any longer. The Wang family of Beihai remained calm and collected. Qin Weibai had to try her best to control the situation while Li Tianlan was silent and delay the chaos in Beihai. The most important part of the job was the transfer of information. She needed to choose someone whom she could trust and who was also trusted by the Wang family of Beihai. Then, he passed the information to him. Then he handed it over to Wang Xingxiao. He asked Wang Xingxiao to use the power of Mount Dibbing to eliminate some threats in Beihai. But for Li Tianlan, the most favorable situation was that the chaos of the Wang family of Beihai broke out a little later, instead of being completely nipped in the bud. Thus, a portion of this information had to be hidden. What kind of information should be given, what kind of information should not be given, how to eliminate the threat of North Sea in the near future, and how to ensure that North Sea would definitely fall into chaos in the near future, these were all things that needed to be studied in detail. To put it simply, if this piece of information was to be handed over to Mount Dibbing as a weapon to attack the dark forces, then they must first determine the point of attack. Which 2 locations? On the still dark screen, the hoarse voice rang out. "Come on. One is at Qiushui City Pier number 3, and the other is at Kanglan City Riverside Club," military counselor said. After a brief silence, the hoarse voice sounded again, "Out of these 2 locations, Kanglan City must be eliminated." "Reason?" military counselor asked. "This place is a little close to the other hiding spots you provided, and there are some connections that can't be made clear in a short time. Some of the relationships within the North Sea are very complicated, and there are some joints that I haven't seen clearly until now. If we make a move on this place, it may lead to the exposure of other hiding spots in Kanglan City that can't be exposed. The impact will be huge, so it's better not to make a move." In that case, military counselor remained silent. Nowadays, several superpowers lurking forces had almost spread all over Beihai. These lurking sites rarely existed in isolation. Generally, they were in a line, either long or short. Kanglan City, the lurking site, involved at least 3 places. If they gave up, it meant that they would have 3 less places to give to Mount Dibbing. 3 seemed like a small number. But they didn't reveal much to Mount Dibbing. So it seemed that these 3 points were very useful. The number 2 spot in Queen City can be given to Mount Dibbing. I'll take care of other problems. In the dark screen, the voice was still unhurried. How sure are you? Military counselor asked in a deep voice. He didn't doubt the position and ability of the other party, but he had to be careful about this matter. If he represented Samsara Palace now, then the other party represented Emperor Dong's palace. Although Li Tianlan didn't know of his existence, he had been doing things for the Li family all these years. In the sequence of the Li family, he had no name, only a code name. Migrez. This was a person who had given almost everything for the Li family. In order to hide his identity and not expose it, he even gave up his only daughter in a difficult choice. For more than 20 years, his loyalty had never changed. After Li Hong had died, he naturally regarded Li Tianlan as the young master. Today, the information of the 2 sides was completely shared. Saint passed all the information he had to Migrez, and then the 2 of them confirmed the attack points one by one. Now it was coming to an end. Once all the information was confirmed, Migrez would take this incomplete but helpful information to Mount Dibbing to see Wang Xingxiao to deter the several dark forces lurking in Beihai, delay their plans, and make them more cautious. In military counselor's view, the point proposed by Migrez shouldn't have been exposed. 100% sure. Migrez said lightly, "Don't worry, I can handle it." Listen to him. Qin Weibai, who had been silently looking at the computer, suddenly said. Saint froze for a moment and then stopped talking. "When you finish sorting it out, send me a copy of the specific information." Qin Weibai continued. "Why?" Migrez asked. "The reason is the same as the last time I asked you to find Wang Xingxiao." Qin Weibai's eyes flickered slightly. "I'll add some things to the information and test it again." Migrez was silent for a moment and was a little confused. "You don't trust Wang Xiaoyao? Or, you don't trust his current position? He is not trustworthy in the first place." Qin Weibai said, "And it's not a matter of trust or not. I just want to make sure again. He should know very well that Yagyu Kurasumi didn't go to Jinling City some time ago. Wang Xingxiao doesn't know about this." Migrez's voice was low. "It doesn't mean anything." Qin Weibai shook her head. "In this matter, no matter how cautious we are, we can't be too careful." Migrez was silent for a moment and said, I see." Qin Weibai said no more and continued to sort out the documents. She looked more and more serious and focused. Military counselor glanced at her with a somewhat complicated look in his eyes. This seemingly natural transaction contained too much cautiousness and intrigue. Qin Weibai had devoted herself to the coming chaos in Beihai. Military counselor naturally knew why. Because of 2 words. Not convinced. That was all. She didn't know whether he was not convinced by himself or not convinced by her. In the past, whenever she or that person was so focused, something big always happened in the dark world. For example, the final battle in Heaven Capital. Another example was the chaos in Eastern Europe. Compared with the other Qin Weibai, the current Qin Weibai might still be a little immature. She couldn't do it as easily as that person. But at this time, she really tried her best to control everything. Whether that was her other self or not, she didn't want to lose. Military counselor took a deep breath, reached out his hand, knocked on the table, and whispered, "Let's study it." Chapter 8:14. At 2:00 in the middle of the night, Migrez and military counselor finally completed the handover of the report. The complicated information network was sorted into a relatively simple network map in the shortest time and handed over to Qin Weibai. Qin Weibai changed some of the things and even deliberately left some clues. Then she confirmed the information that was finally delivered to the Wang family of Beihai. Migrez went offline immediately. Qin Weibai leaned against the chair and gently rubbed her eyebrows. Do you still think there's something wrong with Wang Xiaoyao? Military counselor asked slowly. If there's something wrong with him, he has already gone too far. He didn't even leave any leeway. I don't think there's something wrong with him. Qin Weibai said softly, it's just that he can't be fine. Her voice was soft and firm. It was not a problem that she thought it was. It was a fact. There must be something wrong with Wang Xiaoyao now. Why are you so sure? He may have a problem with Wang Tianzong, but it's definitely not to the extent of fighting with Mount Dibbing to the death. He wants to take power and be promoted. These may be true, but he can't completely fall out with Mount Dibbing. Qin Weibai said softly. In fact, he has already done it. Military counselor said calmly, without him, several dark forces can't hide so many people in Beihai province. According to our estimation, there are more than 5 digits of people lurking in various cities of Beihai province. This number is updated every day, but what remains unchanged are the elites. Once chaos breaks out, the entire Beihai will be covered with blood. From the standpoint of Mount Dibbing, he is unforgivable. This is the crux of the problem. Qin Weibai got up and poured herself a glass of water. She said slowly, he has done something that he can't do. He must be plotting something. I never doubt Wang Xiaoyao's standpoint, or his standpoint has nothing to do with me. I just think that when he is secretly planning something, maybe we can use this to get greater benefits. Military counselor opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't say it in the end. The computer screen shrank for a moment. Military counselor's figure shrank. Saint, who was reconnected, appeared on the screen. The coldness of 9 states has been sent to Zhongyuan. Academician Dongqing has begun to study it. I've been watching. At present, there is no progress. Saint, who had already returned to Yuzhou Hospital, said. He glanced at the military advisor, raised his eyebrows slightly, and asked directly, you haven't gone offline yet? I've been so busy that I haven't even caught my breath yet. Where should I go offline? The military counselor was baffled. Didn't you arrest Hua Xingyang to inspect Huading today? Saint said, oh, it's past 12 o'clock now. That was yesterday. The military counselor was stunned for a moment. He slapped his forehead and said, I forgot. Actually, I didn't pick him up yesterday. We agreed to have dinner together. Did I offend someone? Saint chuckled and did not say anything. Has the fusion direction of Xianyuan Feng and Chill of the 9 states been decided? Qin Weibai interrupted the two and asked directly. There was no doubt that Dongqing Wujin was a well-deserved weapon development expert in Zhongzhou State, especially in terms of individual weapons. He was second to none in the world. The 2 models of sniper rifles of the Dongqing clan, Mad Strike and Sky Attack, had proved this. The small optical camouflage system on individual equipment could also prove this. For the entire Zhongzhou State, he was more than just a top talent. The existence of Dongqing Wujin was completely an authoritative figure in the field of individual weapons. The direction is the same as last time. Saint said, he means that the power of Xianyuan Feng doesn't need to be improved anymore. The only shortcoming now is the charging speed. After the fusion, Xianyuan Feng can not only bear the sword intent of Tianlan, but it can also be charged and used as a murderous weapon to speed up its energy absorption. This is the best choice. Qin Weibai nodded and didn't express any opinion. She just said softly, Migrez will soon give the intelligence that the Wang family of Beihai needs to Wang Xingshao. The first wave of chaos in Beihai province is coming, but this time it will be led by Mount Dibbing. The Vatican, East Island, and the Jianghu family of South America will all have some people lurking in Beihai. You two need to discuss this, because we also need some usable people to lurk in Beihai. Whether it's to deal with future variables or the coming war, they are useful. In addition, we also need a group of people to support Beihai. What do you think? Saint looked at the military counselor. The remaining forces of the Samsara Palace were in the hands of the military counselor, and these forces would be integrated into Emperor Dong's palace bit by bit in the future. This operation might be the first step for the forces of the Samsara Palace to be integrated into Emperor Dong's palace. I have a lot of suitable people here. Military counselor said indifferently, but I need to figure out one thing. Are these forces lurking in Beihai to target other forces lurking in Beihai, or to compete with the Wang family of Beihai in the future? Both. Qin Weibai glanced at him. Then divide the list into 2 parts. One part will be hidden in the dark and stay dormant for a long time to strengthen our current forces in Beihai. The other part will be responsible for dealing with other forces. Emperor Dong's palace can also send some people, Saint said. The power of Mount Shu could hardly be used in this operation. Although the parliament had not talked to him until now, Saint knew very well that he himself might be under all kinds of restrictions. But the elites of Emperor Dong's palace could be used by Li Tianlan. The starting point of Emperor Dong's palace was extremely high. The main combat force under Li Tianlan's command were the best chosen from the graduates of the Deep Sea Academy and the Sky Academy. They had just graduated more than a year ago and might have seemed immature. But now, they were strong enough to be a force that could not be ignored. But the people of Emperor Dong's palace have to wait for Tianlan to make up his mind. Saint said. That day won't be too far away. Qin Weibai rubbed the cup with both hands and said indifferently, You are the deputy palace master. You can take out a list first and try to be as detailed as possible. Saint nodded and did not say anything else. Qin Weibai turned off the video and the computer. Her gaze was distant, looking in the direction of the North Sea province. Countless conspiracies and plots had begun to evolve and spread in the land that had been stable for hundreds of years. Emperor Dong's palace, Samsara Palace, Mount Dibing, the Parliament. The Jianghu family of South America, the Vatican, East Island, King Xiaoyao of Snow Mountain. There were also countless forces in the dark world that were ready to make trouble. Everyone's eyes were focused on Beihai, the place where demons danced. Qin Weibai smiled. Her eyes were bright and full of expectation. Chapter 8:15. The cooperation between Emperor Dong's palace and the Wang family of Beihai was very smooth. After both sides made satisfactory conditions, on the afternoon of the second day after Wang Xingxiao returned to Mount Dibing from the desert prison, a piece of intelligence about entering Beihai through special channels had appeared in front of Wang Xingxiao. Wang Xingxiao was meditating on the stage of formidable person. The breeze of Beihai blew. The letter in Xian Ming's hand shook slightly as the wind blew. Wang Xingxiao looked at the letter in Xian Ming's hand. His eyes flickered slightly and he asked, Is it all here? Xian Ming nodded and said yes. He was the chief intelligence officer of the Wang family of Beihai and was responsible for the intelligence agencies of the Wang family of Beihai all over the world. Mount Dibing cooperated with Emperor Dong's palace. In terms of intelligence, Emperor Dong's palace naturally had to hand it over to him. No one could say anything. Wang Xingxiao reached out and took the envelope. The envelope was very thin. It was conceivable that there was not much content in it, but it was very important. A complicated look flashed in Wang Xingxiao's eyes. Emperor Dong's palace could send part of the intelligence so quickly, which meant a lot. First of all, this was definitely not the intelligence force of Emperor Dong's palace lurking in Beihai. To be precise, it should be the force of Samsara Palace. This letter completely meant that even if the master of Samsara Palace had fallen, Samsara Palace, which had always regarded the Wang family of Beihai as its imaginary enemy, still had trustworthy elite intelligence agencies operating inside Beihai province. However, looking at the content of this letter, it seemed that even if Samsara Palace still had hidden forces in Beihai, it seemed that there were not many. Because Emperor Dong's palace provided very little information. Very little, but extremely accurate. Wang Xingxiao was not sure if the other party had hidden information. But at least if the content of the letter was true, Emperor Dong's palace did provide a very good clue. This was a very timely news. There are only 2 places. The intelligence of Samsara Palace is sure that there are elites of East Island lurking in Beihai in these 2 places. They are in Xingzhou and Floating Island. Wang Xingxiao handed the envelope to Xian Ming and said quietly, "Compare them." Xian Ming took the letter and glanced at it. He frowned and said, "If the news is true, then these 2 places are indeed out of our control." Of course, the Wang family of Beihai was not blind or stupid. Since he knew the actions of several dark forces, Wang Xingxiao had immediately after ordering the investigation of the entire Beihai province, the intelligence agency of Mount Dibing had been fully operational. In the past, they did not guard against Wang Xiaoyao and knew very little about his private life. Naturally, they did not know some of his secret strongholds. But nothing could be really flawless. As long as they carefully investigated, there would always be some flaws. Xian Ming almost wholeheartedly focused on this, looking for clues bit by bit. The work had progressed to the present, and there had been some results. However, the time was very short. At present, they had only determined a general direction. The information given by the Samsara Palace was in Xingzhou City and Floating Island City. Xian Ming hadn't found any clues in these 2 places yet. The intelligence of Samsara Palace was indeed helpful. A good clue, isn't it? Wang Xingxiao said calmly, "Send a group of people out and start with these 2 clues. Try to dig out more information and find out all the rats lurking in front of our house. Don't leave any alive." Xian Ming was stern inwardly. He nodded solemnly. "I will do it immediately." Wang Xingxiao agreed and said intentionally or unintentionally, "Are there enough people? If not, transfer some people here. Jiangnan society also has people in Beihai, right? Let them join in." Xian Ming was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay." In the sequence of the Wang family of Beihai, Jiangnan society was responsible for the intelligence agency of the entire Zhongzhou state, and Beihai province was undoubtedly a part of Zhongzhou state. So there was a very interesting situation. Nominally, Xian Ming was Lu Shuanghua's leader, but in fact, it was difficult for him to lead Lu Shuanghua. Wang Tianzong didn't seem to notice this at the beginning, but when something really happened, people could realize how subtle this move was. Intelligence agencies had always been sensitive. Putting Lu Shuanghua and Xian Ming in a position of mutual restraint was undoubtedly a check and balance. Now Wang Xingxiao asked Lu Shuanghua's people to join in. There was no doubt that it was also a check and balance. The slight discomfort in Xian Ming's heart quickly disappeared. He didn't think that Wang Xingxiao was seizing power. However, in the current critical situation, the intelligence work was really not suitable for him to act arbitrarily. It could be said that Wang Xingxiao was guarding against him. From another perspective, it was also Wang Xingxiao's protection for him. Xian Ming smiled. "I will call Shuanghua right away and ask him to lead the elites of Jiangnan society to Beihai." Wang Xingxiao nodded and took a deep look at Xian Ming. It seemed that everything was said in silence. Now that we have reached an agreement with Emperor Dong's palace, we don't need to be polite about some things. They can reach into our home to give us information, so we naturally have to return the favor. Since it is cooperation, we can't let our ally think that we know nothing about him, right? Wang Xingxiao said with a smile. Xian Ming narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" "As far as I know, after the fall of the master of Samsara Palace hid a lot of things, including a lot of people, a lot of resources, a lot of experts. You draw up a list and give some of the people that Samsara Palace hides and thinks we still don't know to Samsara Palace. Tell them that this is my idea. I hope they can appear on the battlefield in Beihai." Wang Xingxiao said calmly. Xian Ming hesitated for a moment and agreed. The intelligence work of the Wang family of Beihai was naturally not only responsible for its own territory, but also collecting the movements and secrets of other forces. It could even be said to be the most important part of the intelligence work. The hostility that Samsara Palace showed to the Wang family of Beihai was so obvious. How could the Wang family of Beihai not make preparations? Now, It seemed like it was time for these preparations to be put to use. In addition, Emperor Dong's palace has been developing well recently. We should also draw up a list for Emperor Dong's palace. If we make a big move, Li Tianlan can't refuse. But I want Zhongzhou State to see Emperor Dong's attitude. Wang Xingxiao continued, at least one of the figures standing in the public eye in Emperor Dong's palace should come. Xian Ming nodded again. Wang Xingxiao said no more and watched Xian Ming's back slowly disappear from the stage of formidable person. The setting sun on the horizon slowly sank into Beihai. Dusk was approaching. The tides of Beihai rose and fell. Standing on the ancient stone platform, Wang Xingxiao walked to the edge and stared at Beihai in the distance. Wisps of sword energy spread from afar with the tide. It was overwhelming. Sword energy was fighting over the stage of formidable person in Beihai. It was like the heartbeat of the sky. Wang Xingxiao was surrounded by sword energy. He took a deep breath, and his eyes became calmer and deeper. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.